Hello, everybody, and welcome to another version of Bill Rhoden on Sports here at MetLife Stadium, where, I don't know, Jamal, I'm here with my friend, co-host Jamal Murphy, who fortunately is not a New York Giants fan.
Nope. Nope. Never have been. So I was truly neutral. I wasn't rooting against them or anything, but
Oh no, because we like the organization.
yeah, we love the organization
A lot.
And but they took a tough loss, 29-27 loss to the Redskins, who needed it. You know, people always talk about the team that's more desperate.
Jamal, we don't use that word on Bill Rhoden on Sports.
What's that?
The R word.
I'm sorry.
How do you feel about? Well, clearly we know how you feel about that.
It's been drilled into me.
Well, just like the N word, right? That was like drilled. Yeah. Well, more on that later.
Right.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I'm one of those people that thinks that Eli Manning has one more Super Bowl left in him. You know, almost like the worse they get off, the worse start they get off, the more now they got him just where they want him. But this was an interesting game. Primarily, I mean, it's early season.
Right.
You know, early season, but this was a rematch with Josh Norman and Odell Beckham.
Right.
And
Thriller in Manila.
Yeah, the Thriller in Manila too. And I mean, you knew that it wasn't going to be anything like that insanity.
No.
Last year when Odell Beckham just completely lost his mind.
Right. And you know, there was talk prior to that game that there was instigation involved from the Panthers, but there's always that's always the case, so you have to keep your head regardless. But yeah, I mean, there was so much talk before the game. You knew nothing like that was going to happen. First of all, the league was on high alert.
Right.
They both were supposedly warned before the game.
Right.
Norman addressed that in his press conference, and I think Beckham did also. Mm-hmm. So they knew, and when you watched the game and you saw the interaction, it wasn't too much going on there. Extracurricular.
Everybody's a year older. The context changed. I mean, last year, Josh Norman was with Carolina.
Right.
They were going toward the Super Bowl and they were winning, and Cam Newton was like sort of the show and that kind of stuff. And now he's with Washington, a whole nother context. Beckham is a year older now, whether he's wiser or not. Because even today, I mean, he was still kind of emotional. I mean,
very emotional. Did you see the memes? There's already a bunch of memes out there with him crying with real tears after something happened during the game. I can't remember what it was.
And Eli and Kevin Keating, our engineer. Hello, Kevin. How are you doing? He's good. Yeah. I'll give you a little
thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Yeah, he gives thumbs up for those in radio land, podcast land. I'll give you a little sound because Eli seems a little baffled because people ask, well, what was what was Odell upset about?
Right.
And you should hear the sound because Eli just seemed baffled.
I mean, but he always seems baffled. Actually, he has a baffled look.
Yeah, he does always have a baffled look, but he was particularly baffled. but here's what Eli had to say about that.
Yeah, just trying to figure out what was going on, why it was frustrating. It seemed like he was getting catches, he was making plays, and just need him. We need everybody to stay calm. We don't need to get rattled. We don't need to get fired up. You can get excited, celebrate your teammates, but we just got to keep. I don't know why. We just got to do a better job offensively. Everybody just staying calm and staying in our rhythm.
Yeah. And it seemed like that you mentioned somebody asked Beckham what happened after the game. He said that after the game, said you guys really had a nice moment. You and Josh Norman. What was said? And he just said, hey, we're just two fierce competitors. That's all it was. We love football, and we feel like this has turned into something that's not football, honestly. I know that all I care about for is football. And it was not, I think that when you have a year to think about this stuff, and then you got your mother, your friends telling me, we didn't raise you like that, boy. But he's down south. And they said, boy, we didn't raise you. What, you go up north and you just lose your mind and turn you put your blonde hair on, and now we didn't raise you to be that kind of kid. So I'm sure he heard a mouthful at some moment from his mother or somebody. So she said, you ain't too big for me to put you over my knee.
No question. And on the field, Beckham showed up. I know the Giants lost, but he showed up. 7 receptions for 121. So he definitely pulled up his half of the bargain. And in the process, he became the fastest player in NFL history
Yeah.
to get to 3,000 yards, and the fastest player in NFL history to get to 200 receptions. So he's doing a lot. It shows you how talented the kid is, how good he's been in the first 2 years. I mean, he's been the best wide receiver ever over a short time period. It's saying a lot.
Yeah, and again, something like that. Like even today, somebody's asking. So this thing what we do in the media. I mean, we especially, they kept goading him. They were saying,
right.
It's the one guy. Odell looked like there was a lot of jawing during the game. Was Josh talking a lot on the field?
Yeah. Not really. Like I said, I didn't see much jawing.
Yeah, and even Odell said, well, he said, I don't really remember any words. I just remember going out and playing our game. It just so happened that we came out with a loss today. So he was trying to play it down, and typically with us, then the follow-up question, well, what happened on the sideline after you had a big drive? You seemed to have a meltdown. And he said, I don't remember.
He doesn't remember. Yeah, okay. Well, they're going to be reminding him all week.
Right.
And I'm sure he's already seen the memes because this is the culture we live in now. You can't do anything that goes unnoticed now, and people will record it on Instagram and Twitter and everything like that. So, he'll be reminded plenty. As for Josh,
yeah. So somebody, I'm sorry. Somebody else asked him as a follow-up. They said, "Were you in tears at any? Were you in tears at any point?"
He was.
He was. But
there's visual evidence.
But he said, "I don't remember."
It might have been sweat.
They said, "How'd you get that scratch on your face?"
Yeah.
I don't remember. Oh, on the first touchdown, Norman caught you in the air. You faked and carried you about 5 or 6 steps. Were you surprised the referee didn't call a penalty on that? I don't remember.
They're good.
He sounds like, who said that? Oh, the baseball player remembers.
Mark McGuire.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Or who said misremember?
Misremember.
That Clemens.
Clemens, yeah. I
must have misremembered.
Misremembered.
Hey, man, it happens. I misremember sometimes, too.
Oh, clearly. That's my middle name. Misremember. Today anyway, that's a whole other
I hear
thing.
you.
But, again, and as Eli had said, this is like just game 3. I mean, but that's what we do in the NFL because you only play 16 games, so every single game does carry some weight.
Exactly. When can you stop saying that? Oh, it's only week 3. Then you say it's only week 4, and by the time you know it, you're 2-6, and you can't say it's only week 8.
Like the Jets. I mean, again, we'll probably give an update, but last I looked,
it wasn't looking good.
It was not looking good for the visiting team.
Yeah, tough place to play at Kansas City, and the Jets aren't doing too well over there. Mm-hmm. But back to this game. And back to the Odell, Josh Norman feud or whatever. We already mentioned Odell's stats, very impressive. Norman comes away with the win. Did his thing, and he was very, very happy in the press conference. He wanted everybody to know how good he felt that the Redskins got their first win, and that he was a part of that. And coming into the big bad New York Giants stadium and being able to come away with a win. In that circumstance, he was over the top. That's what he had to say.
It was an awesome day. It's a straight awesome day. Like, from the beginning, when the refs came over and talked to us about nothing, and towards the end, when I was celebrating with my teammates victoriously, can't ask for nothing better than that. All the stuff in between that was show. At the end of the day, a W all that matter, and just, gosh, man, I'm gonna be on this high for a while, so that's good, man.
So, obviously, Josh Norman's happy. Redskins are happy. They needed the win. They were 0-2, had to get that first win.
Yeah, and obviously, as you might imagine, on the other side, the whole Giants from the head coach to Eli was about the blunders and losing their composure. Eli had a couple interesting things to say about the mistakes. This is the first thing he said, when asked about the blunders and the penalties.
We got to play smart. Those, your rhythm, those makes the play calling harder. Slows down the game. We got them on the ropes a few times, and all of a sudden we're going backwards. And so, we got to play smart football. We can't afford to do that.
Yeah, we were talking before. I mean, again, this is game 3, so we don't want to. And by the way, we do like football. I know that's sort of the tide of kind of like with injuries and all that. I've been talking to parents, even a lot of parents, most of them black parents, about whose kids are playing football, and they're like saying, I'm like, well, what do you feel? They say, well, if I mean, I want it to be safe, but if this is what they want to do, then So one parent said, "There's more for us," because a lot of parents are taking their kids to lacrosse and all that. She said,
right.
"Yeah, it's great. There's more for us."
Yeah, no question about it.
But we were talking before. There are a lot of other interesting things that are going going on in the NFL early. Early on, right?
Yeah, early on. I mean, week 3, like you said, some interesting things that happened. I mean, Buffalo gets a win. They needed a win. Rex Ryan had to be on the hot seat. Had a horrible performance against the Jets. At least,
horrible.
Especially coaching wise, he made some weird decisions in that Jets game, and the Jets came up big with that win. So Buffalo, they beat Arizona, which is a big surprise. Arizona looked good last week. Most people thought Arizona would take care of business against Buffalo. It didn't happen. So Rex gets the victory and he survives another week. He shouldn't hear any any rumors of being fired this week.
Well, people are kind of biting their tongues,
right? I'm sure he'll hear it next week.
Mm-hmm. I thought the big surprise was in New England, man. I mean, these guys, where do they get these players from, man?
Right.
I mean,
well, they had a black quarterback.
Yeah.
I think that was the first time they had a black quarterback started in the history of their organization.
I think you're probably right.
And he came through. He came through for the motherland.
Big time. They said Celtics coach Brad Stevens told reporters last week that spending time with Bill Belichick can make you feel pretty inadequate as a coach.
I hear that.
But
he's been around a long time.
He has been around a long time. But it's interesting. I'm trying to get the name of the kid who played.
Brissett.
I mean, a rookie.
Right.
Okay, Brady is out, and okay. So then, you get the second string quarterback who played pretty well. He goes down, so people's okay now. For sure, it's over now. I mean, right? This kid Brissett comes in, man, and now people, it could be a quarterback controversy.
And then he's hurt now, so they have another guy who has to come in. Maybe Garoppolo might be better. Right. But let me ask you this: does this mean that Tom Brady is overrated?
No, that's a good question.
I mean, it seems like Belichick can win with anybody.
People have always said that Brady is a system quarterback.
Right.
That this is just the perfect system for him. Now,
I mean, even remember when he got hurt that year and that Cassell come in, or Castle, however you pronounce it,
Matt Castle. Right.
And they went 11-5.
Right.
So, and I don't think Castle has ever been close to 11-5 since then. The rest of his career.
Yeah.
And he started some games.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, clearly they've got a great system.
Right.
They've got a great system. And there is something to be said for them. No, I think he clearly is a great coach. I mean, even they do push the rules a little bit, but at least when you push the rules, you win.
Right. I'm going to go ahead and call him overrated.
Who? Brady?
Tom Brady.
I don't know, man. He'd be on my team. But what else?
What else? I mean, today Denver goes 3-0. They still have that. Their defense still looks great. They have the kid Simons is the quarterback. He's a rookie. He's playing pretty well, but has them 3-0. But on the strength of the defense. Another interesting game today, which is going on now. But last I looked, Philadelphia was crushing the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Pittsburgh is almost everybody's favorite, team to come out of the or be one of the teams to come out of the AFC, or one of the formidable teams in the division. And the Eagles, who nobody was talking about beginning of the year, the rookie quarterback also with Wentz, last I looked, 27-3 against Pittsburgh. Maybe the Eagles are pretty good.
They could be. They could be. Meanwhile, the 49ers were getting killed again, right?
Yeah, 49ers getting killed. Maybe will there be a Kaepernick sighting?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see what happens if they continue to lose like this, and now Kaepernick has to play.
What do you think? You think he has to play? Do you think the owners want him to play? Do you think the coach wants him to play? What do you think?
But I think they want to win.
Right.
And I think they cannot afford to keep losing like this. I think their worst nightmare. I mean, who knows? I mean, the owner they did come out and give $1 million to whatever charity, but
right. And Chip Kelly's been saying some pretty pro Kaepernick stuff. He's supporting him.
He better.
Right.
Because all the black players think he's a racist.
I guess not anymore. Maybe the tide is turning.
Well, he turned the tide.
Right.
He said, the league is 67% black. If I got any future in this league,
Right.
and even in college,
Right.
big time college, I better change his image quickly. They say he's got like a black power thing on his jacket. He wears like a little fist or something.
Yeah, I heard.
He's there kneeling in prayer with Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah, I heard he's gonna raise his fist before the national anthem.
Hey, brother, what, anything else you want me to do? Because they knew how bad they knew they had a stiffer quarterback. That's because the rumors were that Kaepernick was trying to get himself traded.
Right.
And they said, "Oh no, we know we got a quarterback. We're not trading you."
Right.
So that'll be interesting to see.
Along those lines, Carolina this was really probably the biggest and most interesting game of the day. Carolina drops to 1-2. Cam Newton drops to 1-2. They lose at home to Minnesota. They were 7-point favorites going into the game. And then, the real story is just where they're playing. They're in Charlotte. Obviously, we know what's going on in Charlotte with the protests over the last 3, 4, 5 days and nights due to the another unarmed person being shot.
Man.
And by the cops.
Then even what we were talking about on the way over to the stadium, the potential of a frame up.
Right.
With the police possibly trying to plant a gun and possibly getting caught on slow-mo of planting the guns, and which led to a very interesting conversation in our car coming over just about, I think somebody called it a play. I mean, how at this point, when these things happen and the police have their way of trying to justify it and planning this and planning that and planning that. I mean, it's really quite demoralizing when you think about that. These are people that are supposed to protect the citizenry, and in many instances they're seen as these occupation forces, and it just keeps getting worse, man. It's just very depressing. And you're right. I wonder whether they should have even played that game. And there's a part of me that thought that if the black players on both sides would have really had some nerve, if they would have just said, we think that this game either should be canceled, or we think there should be a moment of silence before the game or something. But we're just not going to go out there and just play the game like nothing happened.
Which is what they did.
Right.
And Cam Newton made some headlines pregame for wearing a shirt with the Martin Luther King Jr. quote that said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." We've all heard the quote, and it's true. But he wore a black T-shirt with that writing, and I guess to him, he's taking some sort of stand with that. What do you think, Bill?
Good job, Cam. Listen, because he was taking so much heat.
Right.
I mean, people are doing everything but calling him Uncle Tom.
Right.
I mean, some did.
Right.
So I guess, you got to feel an incredible amount of pressure, man, when you kind of taking these little vanilla stands,
right,
and black people getting killed, and now black people starting to question your blackness, and you down in North Carolina of all places,
right,
and then in your very hometown, because remember when he started giving these vanilla answers, none of this stuff had happened. It's certainly not in his backyard.
Right.
So now he gives whatever his little answer was, and then all of a sudden a apparently unarmed black man gets shot in his town. Now they okay, Cam. Now what are you gonna do? He says, okay, I'm gonna put on a shirt out. Injustice anywhere. And you kind of okay. Now what do you say? I mean, what are you saying? I mean,
right. And he made a lot of players this week after this happened made statements. His was kind of the same thing. Like you said, I don't question what's in his heart. I don't know what's in his heart. I'm assuming he cares about black people.
right.
But it's just his statements.
Does he care about? I guess the question would be, do you care about your brand,
right,
and making more money? Do you care more about that than you care about black folks and injustice? And
right,
and do you have to wait until something happens to you?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, you become, like Malcolm or something, So I mean, I don't know. Again, I guess as I get older, you realize that you just have to let people be, well, to some extent.
Right.
I mean, the whole point is that Cam, and I think you talked to his dad last year.
Right.
But the fact is that Cam, there was only like 30 years ago, man, there wasn't black quarterbacks, or, there's a lot of stuff here in North Carolina you could not do.
Right.
Only because people pushed and pressured and didn't worry about their brand and didn't worry about making money and that kind of stuff. And they took a stand. They marched. They demonstrated. Some people got hurt very badly. Some people got killed. And that's just, it gets back to Kaepernick. It's just the nature of struggle from the Revolutionary War to now. You don't ask permission. It's not pleasant. It usually, you usually will make enemies, and they were going to be your enemies anyway. So he's got to, Cam's got to decide who's he going to be, not as a football player, but as a black man.
Right.
What role? What are you going to do? What role are you going to play? And it's nice that he put the Dr. Keating, but I feel he just felt pressure.
Yeah, no question, and he has a lot of
Michael Jordan was his advisor.
Even worse, actually, because we know a friend of the show, Jonathan Jones, a friend of the show who's been on the show. He wrote an interesting article in SI on SI.com about the Panthers hiring a Republican strategist to basically be Cam's mouthpiece. So that's where a lot of Luntz, Luntz. He's a Republican strategist / pollster, and you've seen him. He's on Fox News. He does a lot of the focus group stuff after debates, and supposedly people within the Carolina organization hired him to consult with Cam Newton on how to deal with these questions. So of all people,
right, a Republican
Trump supporter is consulting with Cam on how to respond to these questions.
Jerry Richardson, who I believe is a Republican,
right,
as well. I don't know if he's a Trump Republican, but he's the one who, he had to okay this.
Right.
What kind of room are you sitting in when you say, how do we deal with this? Well, let's get a Republican. Who can we get to help Cam? And I'm just trying to think, if you're like who would you even like with Jim Brown? We Jim, we'd like to get Ronald Reagan to kind of give you little pointers on how to deal with the riots out there.
Right.
Oh,
right.
Man.
No, it shows you people don't have a clue, or maybe they do. Maybe it's some sick, strategy on their part. Obviously, this is what they want. They want him to say things that will appease football fans. And we've talked about these football fans.
Oh boy, brother! Every time when you go through the parking lot, I don't want to typecast people, but you're thinking you go into the parking lot, and people getting bearded up and stuff. You're like, wow, man,
Yeah.
These are the people that if I were to, you just have a sense that if I were to raise my fist or bow my for the national anthem, you would just get it, man. You would just hear it. You could, again, I hate to just typecast, but I think I'm pretty.
We've seen it now. The people have come out of the woodworks. They're not hiding it.
Kevin's over here like, we got to get you a mic.
Yeah, that's the way it is.
Right.
It's not even a typecast anymore.
Right.
Their voices are being heard. We hear them on Facebook. We hear them on Instagram. We hear them on Twitter. Like they're speaking their mind.
And by the way, this election is a lot. People are talking about taking this thing for granted, man. There are two things that troubled me about the election. There's I have to get the sister's name, who owned Liberation Bookstore, and it's a very famous bookstore in Harlem. She was alive. I would go by there. We talked, and I forget whose office. Maybe Bush was in office, but she said she must have been maybe 70 or 80 or something like that. But she was talking about. Una Mozak. Una Mozak of Liberation. Good as sister, Kev. Una Mozak. But she said, this kind of this wisdom comes. The Democrats steal for 8 years, then the Republicans steal for 8 years. That's how the system works. They steal for 8 years. And when I'm thinking about that today, it kind of terrifies me because, the Democrats were in office. They plundered for 8 years. Now whose turn is it to steal for 8 years? And I was trying to think of when was the last time one party stayed in office for more than 8 years. You have to go all the way back to Franklin Roosevelt. So, I know we're talking about football and all that kind of stuff. But this stuff is really
and nowadays
real.
It's all the same. Football, politics. It's all like meshing together.
Mm-hmm.
You can't even talk about football without talking about this stuff because it's out there in the open now. And no, I hear you with as far as the parties and people don't really like to keep one party in there, more than 2 terms. But I've always looked at this and I agree with you. It is closer. There is a real threat that we could have.
What would that
lunatic
even,
as
what would that even look like?
A lunatic as the president. Nobody knows where look. But I think in the end, enough people think like that and understand that he will not win. And the fact that you have a guy like that leading your party, to me, that's kind of the beginning of the end or the end of the end of your party. And maybe that's why they're not going to get it back because, you can't be a party that's anti-everything, anti-Hispanic, but their Hispanic population is growing. You're anti-black. The black population is kind of growing, so
anti-gay.
The gay population is growing. How are you going to win?
Right. Unless you just steal the election.
Right. So that's what we're scared of.
Yeah. Well,
because because they're trying
that can happen.
It can happen.
Are you kidding me? It can happen. So I don't know, man. We will see.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
No.
We're supposed to be talking football, and I depressed him.
I know. But other thing too. This kind of one thought about Cam. I don't know if we talked about this before last week when we talked about Cam Newton, but we keep talking about what's the next level of protest, and I was thinking. I was talking to John Rogers, who's the CEO and the owner of Ariel Capital, Chicago, and he was saying, it would be great if Cam or other athletes would look at their respective apparel companies, Adidas, Under Armour, Nike, and ask them, well, how many black people do you have on your board? How much business do you do with black vendors? I think that this is about economics and power. And if you talk about you want to use your leverage, and you remember that, you Under Armour's, you're there, well, don't give me a lot of, sneakers for my club, my boys' club. How do you do business with these black vendors that really need business?
Right.
And I think that, and in fact, I want to actually do some research. 'Cause I want to find that out. In fact, I forget who Kaepernick is with, but you kind of look inside your organization, look inside your apparel organizations, and get some accountability from them.
Right.
Who's on your board? And even in your agent, maybe your agent is white, but who does your agent hire?
Right.
If you go to the agent's place and they have no black people in the agency, no black secretaries, the real estate. And your whole operation. Remember we asked, what's the name of that who came on the show, Demario Davis.
Right.
And he kind of thought, maybe I should start asking those questions. Who, I'm talking all this stuff, black power. But are you, who's, and again, this is not to say, you can't have a white agent or a literary agent,
Right.
But at least have them hire some black folks.
Right. Or at least be conscious of what's around you.
Right.
And I think that's the real issue. People have to have some consciousness, and not everybody has that.
Right.
And some people get it later than others. So a guy like Cam, do I expect him to start making those type of power moves or asking those type of questions? No, because he's not even sure what he should say yet.
I know you got to get a Republican strategist.
Right, you're not even sure what your reaction should be yet.
Right.
So you got to get that down first before we can even get to make real power moves, and then I don't know how that comes. I know there are plenty of athletes, all sports, NFL included, that have consciousness, but not everyone.
Oh no, but I think the good thing about this whole thing with the flag and the national anthem is that people, at least athletes who normally may not critically think, they do have to think about what they're saying, because a lot of people, public, are like, well, what do you have to say about this?
Right.
Black, white, green, and different people's, well, this is what this guy says. Well, how do you feel? Well, I don't really know. I just want to, that's
Right.
not acceptable anymore.
Right.
You got to come up with some plausible, thought out answer. Either you're here or you're there, but none of this. I just want to. What did Beckham say?
I don't remember.
I don't remember. I don't remember. I don't remember.
Right.
Okay. Right.
Right.
Okay. So I guess that may be it, right? I mean, is there any more pressing stuff? I know that we're going to be having a very interesting visit later this week from the author of Texas football. This, of course, we should have the name of the author.
Nick Eaton.
Nick Eaton
is the author, and it's I don't remember the name of the book offhand, but
Texas football or something.
Right, it's about Texas football on all levels, from high school, college to the Cowboys, and he'll be on. That'll be an interesting conversation next week.
Yeah, we'll drag it out of him. Well, meanwhile, listen, we're here. What we used to call the Meadowlands, MetLife Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
The Giants took one on the chin, and we'll see how they rebound. But we're going to rebound because we'll be back. We will be back later this week with yet another podcast on Bill Rhoden on sports. Right?
Yeah, we'll be back next week, and we'll also be back at MetLife Stadium next Sunday for Seattle versus the Jets. So that's another big game. That's
because if they lose,
the Jets look like they could be 1-2 coming into that, looking at 1-3 if they lose to Seattle. So that'll be interesting. But in the meantime, this episode will be up tomorrow morning. Check it out on iTunes and SoundCloud. Bill Rhoden on Sports. Follow us on Twitter at BROSpod, Instagram at BROSpod, Facebook. Like our page, which is Bill Rhoden on Sports, or at BROSpod. So do all that good stuff.
And let us know who you like to hear from. I mean,
right.
there are people. Our range is limitless. We could just grab people like Carl Banks. I think we're going to have Carl Banks on our show. Beyonce. And, I'm sorry about that.
Well, hey, you never know. Email us if you have any questions, any comments, anybody you want on the show, any topics you want us to discuss, any direct questions. And if you have any good ones, we'll read them out on the air and give you credit for it. But email us at brospod@gmail.com, BROSPOD@gmail.com, with any comments and show participation.
All right. Hey, listen, I'd like to thank Kevin Keating, our sound engineer, Raisa Kelly, who I guess is busy doing our video. A lot of you have been watching us on YouTube. And Jamal, it's always been a pleasure. Not always been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. And we'll see you next week. Bill Rhoden on Sports. God bless.